A very good evening to you on this 7th day of November 2023. Welcome to the Daily Report right here on your authoritative channel TV47. My name is George Maringa. Our sign language interpreter is Catherine Simaloi. It is Tuesday, and as is the tradition right here on TV47, we bring you the People's Court. Tonight, we shine a spotlight on cancer. It is a disease that has, of course, caused grief far and wide, and has also, we have a village actually in Meru County that has been classified to be the one with the highest number of cancer cases in the country. You want to stand by for that conversation that is coming your way right here on TV47. And as is always the case right here on the People's Court, I'm not alone. Victor Muyakane and Linda Alela are also here in studio. Last week I wasn't around, but it's great to be joining these two guys right here, and we shall be telling you what we shall be discussing matters cancer. Linda, over to you.
Well, you thought the king will not go. He did.
He did
from that moment. So here we are. And it's about you, the people. It's about having that conversation that revolves around things that are important to you and me. And October was largely about the conversation of cancer. And we now get into this very special day as we celebrate the National Day of Cancer. It's important that, we just get to engage and understand, have we gotten that aspect of maximum awareness as to this killer disease? And of course, one factor about cancer is that even men can get breast cancer. Perhaps you never knew. Victor.
Wow. Thank you, Linda. That's a tremendous fact right there. Even men can get breast cancer. By the way, just on top of that fact, the left side of your body is more likely, if you're cancer prone, the left side of your body is more likely to get cancer than the right side. And even on the subject of breast cancer, the left breast is about 10% more likely to develop cancerous growth than the right. And one last thing about cancer, well, it wouldn't be the last because we have a lot to talk about this evening, is that the word cancer is the same word in Latin that means crab. Crab, the crustacean in the rivers and the sea, crab. And it was called this way because early doctors thought that the way a cancer cell looks like is like there's a hub and then things that look like crab legs stemming from the center, and that's how they described it. And cancer was first described by Egyptian doctors a long time ago. My name is Victor Muyakane, and this is the People's Court in the Daily Report.
Absolutely, and we shall be informing you whom we have as our guests as the show progresses. But it is a conversation that we want to stand by for. We have an oncologist, we also have a cancer caregiver, a food systems policy expert, a breast cancer patient, as well as a clinical oncologist. You can hear for yourself that it is a jam-packed show at TV47 News, at Linda_Alela, at Muyakane, at George Maringa _ use the hashtag Daily Report. But before that, let's bring you some up to date with some of the top stories making headlines tonight. Tonight, the country continues to experience heavy rains, with the northern eastern region being the hardest hit.
Maji imeamua kubomoa, imefunja kabisa, so hata tujui kesho tutafanya nini. So kwanza mimi ndio naenda ngambo hiyo kufanya biashara.
As of tonight, more than 26,000 families are grappling with the severe impacts of the floods, and over 13,000 people have been displaced, according to the Kenya Red Cross. Kenya Revenue Authority's Customs Department at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, JKIA, reveals it has seized significant quantities of prohibited and restricted items being brought into the country over the past 4 months.
Our primary role, even before revenue, is to protect citizens. So we need, and that's why you saw the guns, the prohibited and restricted items. We need to make sure that Kenyans are safe.
Also tonight, the impeachment hearing for the embattled Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza commences in the Senate. Mwangaza attentively listened as Senate Clerk Jeremiah Nyegenye read out the charges, marking the beginning of the impeachment proceedings.
The Honorable Kawira Mwangaza, how do you plead to the 7 charges? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
And indeed, the governor has pleaded not guilty, and we begin with that report where the embattled Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza has pleaded not guilty to the 7 counts brought against her. Her defense team, led by lawyer Elisha Ongoya, has urged the senators to base their decision on the substantial evidence being presented before the Senate. The proceedings of the Senate are currently ongoing. I want us to cross over and listen to the proceedings right now.
Paragraph 14.
In fact, I would love you to read that paragraph for the Senate.
That we further made a peculiar discovery that Beijing League Company Limited was not affiliated to the Chinese government, nor did it have any physical registered offices in China.
15.
Further, while in China, we were taken through a tour by officials of Beijing League Company Limited to several manufacturing plants as follows. And he has listed Huawei.
You don't have to read all that?
Yes.
Can we proceed to paragraph 17 appearing at 103?
That all these discoveries were made in the course of a reconnaissance mission in China.
Now, Mr. Mawira, this is a person who traveled to China.
Yes.
Made their own investigations and discoveries. They confirm, okay, that the people who invited them, they do not manufacture, neither do even have a physical address in China.
According to the sworn affidavit.
Do you have any other evidence to the contrary?
Of what happened in China, maybe the videos that we played here, that they visited different manufacturing plants in China.
Yes, but the gentleman who traveled and had the benefit of meeting the individuals in China confirms, one, that these people do not have any affiliation with the Chinese government.
I said according to the sworn affidavit, yes.
Yes. That again, that whereas they represented themselves as people who were affiliated with the government, did not even manufacture or own this.
Absolutely. That is a feed for other current events happening at the Senate right here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, where the leader of majority and Mitungo MCA, that is Evans Mawira Karia, who is also the mover of the motion, is being grilled regarding the impeachment of Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza. We shall be continuing to bring you up to date with what is happening. But earlier on, Paul Kirobi filed this report regarding the impeachment of Kawira Mwangaza.
When viewed against the fact that the governor has already been convicted of contempt of court. The Honorable Kawira Mwangaza, how do you plead to the 7 charges? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
The battle for political survival by Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza shifted to the Senate as the defense team led by his lawyer Elisha Ongoya urges the lawmakers not to impeach the first-time governor elected on an independent ticket, basing the impeachment on matters that are not weighty. While defending the governor, Elisha told senators that they reached out to the county assembly to present their evidence, but they were put off.
And this evidence that the governor has presented here, where was it before the assembly that undertook the first impeachment process? The Hansard of the assembly will bear the governor out. That the governor's legal team went before the assembly with this evidence and asked the speaker of the assembly, direct us on how we present this evidence before you. And the speaker of the assembly ruled that both the legal team and the governor herself were, in parliamentary parlance, strangers.
While representing his submissions before the Senate, Meru County Assembly lead Council Mudhomi Thiankolu urged senators to send the governor packing as she has allegedly not demonstrated leadership qualities by insulting other leaders.
Does that musical performance talk about the previous impeachment proceedings, the lyrics?
It does.
Those lyrics, do they show a person who learned anything from the previous impeachment?
I can state that it doesn't.
Another pressing matter that has arisen pertains to the pending case in the High Court of Meru. Some senators have expressed their opinions on the matter, with Mombasa Senator Faki Mohammed stating that impeaching the governor this time could subject her to double jeopardy.
The county secretary
according to the judgment and according to the ruling, was found to be guilty of contempt. And the matter is still ongoing. The punishment has not been meted. Now, isn't that subjecting the governor to a double jeopardy?
What is in court is the question of sentencing. The question of liability is settled. The only other thing that is in court is the question of purging the contempt. So there is no question of double jeopardy. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the rule of double jeopardy does not apply to proceedings of impeachment.
Today, the leadership of Meru County presented their case along with the witnesses who have accused Governor Kawira Mwangaza of gross misconduct, practicing nepotism, and violating county bylaws. In response, Governor Mwangaza pleaded not guilty to the 7 charges brought against her. Tomorrow, the embattled governor will be defending herself before the plenary. This second impeachment attempt is different as compared to the first one, where the governor's case was subjected to an 11-member committee. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Paul, for that, and you could trust TV47 to bring you up to date with the proceedings at the Senate regarding that impeachment. Heavy rains continue to persist in the country, the hardest hit area being the northern eastern region, where tonight more than 26,000 families are grappling with the harsh impacts of the floods, and more than 13,000 are displaced, according to the Kenya Red Cross. This calling for immediate response to the danger that lurks, diseases as a result of the sanitation problem, lack of food, and shelter. Sheila Chelangat now reports.
Predictions from the weatherman indicate that rainfall is expected to continue for the next week. But as it persists, it leaves a trail of destruction, deaths and displacement of people. In the northeastern counties of Wajir, Garissa and Mandera, the situation is dire. Houses are submerged, people are displaced, and livelihoods have been disrupted. Locals here only staring at a crisis, courtesy of the floods that have ravaged their homes. Statistics from the Kenya Red Cross indicating that already in Mandera, over 13,000 families have been displaced.
Nyumba zingine zimebomoka, wamehamia sehemu ambayo iko juu kidogo. Pale watahitaji usaidizi, chakula, watahitaji hema ya kuweza kukaa sehemu ile hasa wakati huo msimu wa mvua.
The situation is not any different in the neighboring Wajir County. A few months ago, this was the situation here in Buna. Fast forward to today. The bridge here is on the brink of collapsing. The roads here too are just impassable. The coastal region is also struggling with the impacts of heavy rains at the border of Tana River and Garissa counties, and especially in Mororo. More than 200 families will tonight be forced to spend the night in the cold as their homes got swept away.
Sawa, hapa watu wanapata shida sasa hivi, lakini shida ikiisha hapa itakwenda kumalizikia Tana Delta. Na Tana Delta ukiangalia kuna vijiji zaidi ya 20 ambavyo population yake ni zaidi ya watu 2,000 na zaidi.
In Nandi County, a highland area west of the Rift Valley, transport was brought to a halt as the Samo bridge connecting the area to Kapsabet collapsed. According to local residents, it took more than a decade to construct it.
Maji imeamua kubomoa, imefunja kabisa, so hata tujui kesho tutafanya nini. So kwanza mimi ndio naenda ngambo hiyo kufanya biashara.
Those impacted are urging the government for an immediate and urgent response in provision of shelter, water and sanitation services and food. Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Thank you, Sheila, for that. The Kenya Revenue Authority has recently come under sharp criticism from some Kenyan citizens regarding their procedural conduct when inspecting items at the country's entry points. There are allegations of harassment of individuals entering the country, including imposing excessively high taxes on some of the items they bring with them. The Tax Collection Authority insists that it is following the guidelines set out in the Constitution, particularly under the 5th schedule of the ECCMA Act of 2004. Mwege William visited JKIA to observe the inspection process and provides a perspective of the situation.
A flight from the John F. Kennedy Airport, New York City in the United States of America, and the dull arrival bay at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport roared back to life. Busy and hectic becomes the order at the place, at least for a few hours as customs checks take place, starting off with the disembarking of passengers as their luggage is taken to the baggage hall. The Kenya Revenue Authority officials swing into action and the bags flagged off for further checks are open. Here, one was found with 5 iPhone model phones well packed.
Items are taxable that you're bringing in, so we'll go to the office. Sure. I'll need an invoice or you declare the values, and then I'll compute the taxes for you.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Let's go.
All bags are subjected to primary scanning, and if marked, they are taken to the secondary screening, which involves checking out items which are taxable, prohibited, or restricted items.
We came from America. This has been checked. Coming over here, this has been checked. So now we have to check again, which is very unprofessional, but I'm cooperating. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and do whatever you guys want to do, but I'm not gonna let you guys take anything away from my stuff.
Hello, madam. How are you?
For taxable items, the Kenya Revenue Authority allows persons getting into the country to declare them before inspections upon arrival. According to the authority, the checks have been in place since the enactment of the ECMA Act in 2004, but an influx in restricted goods for the past few months has seen the authority swing into action with an increase of such goods being intercepted. The goods include drones, guns, toy guns, magazines, handcuffs, sex toys, among other items.
Our primary role, even before revenue, is to protect citizens. So we need, and that's why you saw the guns, the prohibited and restricted items. We need to make sure that Kenyans are safe. Revenue will come second. When Kenyans are safe, then the revenue will come.
Meanwhile, the revenue generated in October increased to 19 million from 8 million in July, with a significant portion of the collection attributed to self-declarations by travelers.
$500 limit is nothing new. It's been in the law. We've been implementing the law all along since 2004 when ECMA was enacted. However, in the last few months, we've seen an influx of dutiable items. Hence the reaction from the public, because we've intercepted quite a number of high-valued items.
The Kenya Revenue Authority has insisted it will continue to exercise its mandate, but guided by the Constitution under the ECMA Act of 2004. Mwege William for TV47, JKIA, Nairobi.
Thank you, Moiga, for that. To Education Matters, and Education Principal Secretary Bello Kipsang has revealed that officials at the Ministry of Education are suspected to be leaking KCSE papers, citing that examination papers posted on social media platforms could have emanated from such officials. Kipsang said the Ministry of Education officials have exclusive access to examination materials, besides invigilators who at the moment have their phones confiscated once they access exam rooms. The revelation comes on day 2 of KCSE examination, even as 10 people have been arrested for alleged exam malpractices.
It has now emerged that officials from the Ministry of Education could be involved in the leakage of KCSE examination papers. Basic Education PS Bello Kipsang revealing that only MOE officials have exclusive access to examination papers.
While we are doing our exam, we are already 1.5 hours into it. They are celebrating posting, and that is where our colleagues who are supervisors and invigilators, because you see a paper being posted while even when you have already collected and the exam has been completed. What that tells us is that there is somebody in our process who is betraying our process.
The invigilators and supervisors now have since been barred from accessing examination rooms with their phones.
We have a depository where everybody deposits the phone and we move around, so that it's only the center manager for purposes of any emergency who may be having a phone but not in the examination room.
The Ministry of Education further noting that it is vigilant in preventing exam malpractice while assuring teachers, parents and other education stakeholders that measures are in place to ensure a smooth examination season.
More than 10 of these people who have been playing around have been arrested. And I can assure all of us again that quite a number of these sites have been brought down. We are engaging with other jurisdictions to deal with some of the social media sites that require an extended engagement. But our colleagues at the Communication Authority our colleagues who deal with cybercrime, I want to say thank you.
This as Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu, through a letter to newsrooms, announced that the November 13th public holiday announced by the Ministry of Interior will not interfere with exams scheduled for that day. Machogu further urged all members of the Multi-Agency Examinations Administration Group to report to duty on time to ensure all activities of the said day are executed as scheduled. KCSE will enter Day 3 Wednesday, with candidates expected to write their Chemistry Paper 2, English Paper 3, and Kiswahili Lugha Paper 2. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Thank you, Andrin, for that. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has served notice to 19 individuals, including 2 foreigners, named by police as financiers of terror suspects. Kindiki, who spoke while on a tour of Lamu County today, said the individuals have 7 days to explain why they should not be listed as members of a terror group. The Interior Ministry unveiled photos of 35 individuals as the most wanted terrorists last month, which police suspect could be financing terrorism activities in the country.
While on a tour of Lamu County, where he met security officers and community elders as part of the government's efforts to restore order in the region, in the wake of terror attacks, the government has now trained its eyes on 19 individuals listed by Inspector General of Police Japhet Koome, and who have been given 7 days to write to the police to explain why they should not be listed as terrorists.
We have now given notice to 19 other persons and entities whom we believe are either directly or indirectly aiding, abetting, or financing terrorism. And unless we get satisfactory answers, we are going to designate them as aiders and abettors of terror, and legal action will ensue, including prosecution and including circulating those names and entities as designated entities.
Last month, the Interior Ministry released photos of that 5 individuals, including foreigners, as the most wanted terrorists responsible for terror attacks in Lamu. Kindiki, who was flanked by the Coast and Lamu security leadership teams, met community leaders and elders in the government's efforts to foster harmonious existence between various communities in the region, a major step in the war on terror.
We have also agreed between ourselves and the elders and community representatives that we are going to increase the number of administrative units so that we can have more locations, sub-locations, divisions, to bring services closer to the people and to help security agencies to be able to make sure that wananchi have somewhere to report crime closer to home and they get services closer to where they live.
Apul Kamau, TV 47.
Great, let's now make sense of the sense, and the Kenya Bureau of Standards has intensified efforts to action the proposed standard levy as a means of epitomizing safety and reliability of Kenyan goods, a move that spells more operational costs for local manufacturers. While speaking, marking World Quality Day in the country, National Standards Council Chair Peter Munyiri says Kenya must adopt an export-oriented framework for industries to ensure competitiveness with global producers, as KEBS focuses on upholding quality of standards. This as Industrialization PS Dr. Juma Mukhwana endorses the management of subcontracted labs for regional KEBS offices to curb the rising number of quality mishaps and approved products.
Both large-scale and cottage industries have passed the half mark on quality compliance, as the Kenya Bureau of Standards confirms a 60 to 70% compliance.
In terms of compliance, it is a journey. There are those who are a bit advanced, they quickly embrace the S mark. There are those who don't even fully understand why the standards.
This goes towards promoting the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya agenda, which focuses on placing Kenyan goods at the top of consumer shopping lists. However,
think beyond our traditional exports. You may look like you're doing very well when you have 1 ton of coffee, But how many mobile handsets can you buy with a ton of coffee? If you're exporting 1 ton of coffee to import 20 mobile phones, then you can see that we are not making progress.
As the blame shifts on who is guilty of stagnating the growth of manufacturers and, in extension, the sale of Kenyan goods, quality of goods have been tied directly to the competitiveness of such industries in global markets.
Talking about the current industrialization strategy, which is ongoing and being set, KEB sits right there to guide them, to help them, to make sure that they evolve.
While getting the diamond mark of quality is not a finite goal for a lot of micro, small and medium enterprises, the Kenya Bureau of Standards now says that it wants a conjoined effort not only with government but even with private institutions to ensure that Kenyan goods can hit the global markets. Hibak Said for TV47.
Thank you, Hibak, for that. Kenya's economic growth will lag behind some of her East African counterparts, according to an economic outlook for the next year by NCBA Bank, where Kenya will grow by 6%, Tanzania and Rwanda are expected to grow by 6.1% and 7% respectively. The report further reveals that despite significant growth in agriculture and manufacturing, broad economic strain could see some sectors go below the pre-COVID levels, and this prediction, however, is good tidings to Kenyan companies working in other countries within the EAC. Agricultural output is expected to expand by about 5.0%, with agri-export expected to remain within their long-term average trend performance, while the manufacturing sector could remain weak at an annual growth of 2.6%, given the sustained household budgetary strain, while the overall infrastructure spent by both the government and private sector will see low growth of 4.0% in the construction sector.
You need to plan based on the best possible. And actually, very often, what you want is to survive difficult times, not necessarily to thrive in good times. You can thrive in good times, that's easy. But surviving difficult times is a much more, and you need to have the mindset. Because you're doing that so heavily, you now have to also look, how do you finance your other imports? So not only do you borrow from those capital goods, you actually go to the markets because you have access to the markets, and you also borrow from the markets now, similarly to finance. So all that is driving a very huge budget deficit, 8% per year for a couple of years. And then, of course, that is reflected in your current account.
Some of these adjustments on the monetary and fiscal side were always going to be hard, even if necessary. To be sure, the musings from the editorial I just captioned broadly demonstrates this fact, that whatever actions that are being taken are going to be hard.